All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today, the revitalization workshop topic is really the nuts and bolts of what we do. Program study design. We'll talk about partnerships and then also some communication strategies to make you more successful at each stage of your grant. I'm going to ask very quickly, it looks like Linda and Dan and Karen and Kyle, if you guys could just introduce yourselves, my partners from ODE real quick, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Karen Moskin. I do civil rights on the SPST team. Throw it to Dan.
Good afternoon, Dan Finley. I do CTE and work closely with Revit. Over to Linda.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Simeon. I do basically behind the scenes logistical admin support work. And over to Kyle.
I am also admin and support for this team, and I'll be here for technical assistance.
Thank you. I got to tell you, sometimes team members refer to themselves as behind the scenes. That couldn't be farther from the truth for Linda and Kyle both. I mean, you may not get to see their faces out there and their names, but they're all over this Revit grant, and we appreciate them. Take a minute, if you would. I'm going to go ahead and put the link again in for the slide deck. But go ahead and introduce yourselves real quick sometime during this hour and what name and school you're from and what you're thinking about doing as a revitalization project. It doesn't have to be anything concrete, but it just kind of gives us an idea of where different people are going in different areas. I do want to start off today with a poll if we can. And what I'm looking for is just simple yes, no answer. I'm going to launch it. You've had experience with previous CTE grants, or you're brand new to this whole exercise and you can't wait to see what's involved. Go ahead and pick one there. Ooh, the no's are leading 3-1. That's very interesting. The grants have been going on since 2011, I believe, right, Dan? Yes, so they've been going on quite a long time. They've been distributed, we think, fairly equally throughout the state, but we continue to look at that. And as these come in, we'll continue to look at those and see who gets them this year. 2 to 1, look at that. That's very interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. I'm going to ask the team to just kind of take a look at that. And if there's some that are appropriate to answer right away, just go ahead and ask me. If not, we'll wait till the end and we'll get all the answers to all your questions. This time for the CTE Revit, you have a choice of one of 3 options, and they all evolve around building a plan of study. Either you're going to start with a brand new startup, you've got an idea, you've got some people that have been talking about this, maybe you've got some braided funding from Measure 98 and from Student Success Funds and some other things, and you're really just eager to do a startup, don't know anything about it, we're going to help you with that. Throughout today and throughout your exercise of handing in this application, your best friend is really going to be your regional coordinator. If you don't know who that regional coordinator is, please let me know and I'll make sure I point you in the right direction for that. But they're the ones that know these rules. They're the ones that know the policies we're talking about today. They're the ones that'll help you start a 3-year program, a startup program, and make sure that you finish those 3 years as part of this grant. The grant doesn't go on for 3 years, but the outcome of this first choice would be to do a startup program, a brand new idea, and take it through the beginning of that 3-year process. The second level would be as if you already have a startup, and these are actually quite a few of these have been added in the last couple of years. A startup program of study basically is when a school is at a point to do a program of study, but you might not have the instructor yet, or you might not have the curriculum yet, or you might have half the classes. Something's missing from your list of what a true program of study is, so you're in that classification for 3 years as a startup. This grant for your group would be to move you on up, to get over to the east side, to take that startup application and move it to the next level where you're going to have a full program of study at the end. The third level is you're taking your current program of study, and we have about a little over 1,000 of these now, probably closer to 1,100. to take your current program of study you have in your high school and take it up to that highest level of quality. This is where you're going to strengthen your community partners, some of the things we're going to talk about today, add additional post-secondary partner, perhaps, or some curriculum enhancements. So you have a choice of where you're going to get into this. The end goal is still going to be a program of study, whether it's a startup, a regular one, or if you're moving into the high quality program of study. This is in the slide deck, and I've also put a link here. If you click anywhere on this chart, these are our 6 learning areas. Once you have that idea, and I'm abbreviating some parts, but it's all in our policy manual that I'll get to in just a minute. Once you get to that, then you have to figure out where does it fit in one of these 6 learning areas, and past those learning areas, what content area does it fit into? So you have your own copy of this on an Excel spreadsheet that you can go ahead and keep with that. One of the things that Perkins 5, which is how our programs of study are focused and based, the foundation for those is that you're going to lead that program of study to a high wage and a high demand job. I think some of you have probably worked with this in the past, but I put 3 resources there. I'm going to pull up each one because they're very important as part of this process. First of all, if you click on the first one, this one is a list that was put together a couple of years ago of all of the CTE programs of study that are available in Oregon that are high wage and high demand. So this is your cheat list. You can go ahead and take a look at this, see if your program appears on here. If not, then we need to work with you, and you need to work with your regional coordinator and see why not it's high wage and high demand. The second one is very interesting if you want to run some of your own analysis. This one opens up a file, an Excel file. Also, hold on just a second here. Here we go. And this is from State of Oregon Employment Division. And across the bottom here are all the high wage occupations in Oregon, high demand, combination of the two, and one more tab that we used to have them look up for us is the high skill occupations. These are from 2019 to 2029 estimates and projections of where our workforce is going to be. So this is online, but I made sure that you had a special copy here for yourself. This is going to be part of the process that you're developing to justify your program of study. Just because someone likes welding doesn't mean you can offer a welding. There has to be some need for this. And I'm really abbreviating this, obviously, but there has to be some need for this in your local community and your school. So this is how you're proving your point. All right, let's go back to, I'm sorry. Let's go back to our presentation. And then if you're looking for some national statistics, that last link on the bottom will take you to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you'll see if you're looking for some kind of national need, national salary, high wage, high demand, it'll all be listed there. So what I've done for you on this topic is try and bring it back to some different areas where you can go to get that evidence. It's up to you to produce that evidence. If you're either moving from a startup or doing a brand new startup, or you're moving from a startup, this is going to be where you're going to find pretty much step-by-step all the information you need. Go ahead and click on that link now and open up the CTE Policy Guide if you haven't done that yet. This is in its 2nd edition now, and in here is everything you need to know about CTE in Oregon. All the rules and policies have all been listed here, and they're updated once a year. This just went through an annual update. So this from the HEC, Higher Education Coordination Committee, put this together. So in this is everything you need. Some people have a better method of navigating this by downloading it and turning it into a Word document. That's fine. You can still do Control F anywhere on here. And let's just type in startup. And if you're doing it in Docs, my computer's really slow with zoom on, I'm sorry. But this would give you all of the areas in the guidebook, obviously, like the Control F function or the find function. If you do it in Word, if you take this and turn it into a Word document, you can do that by, if you're not used to Google Docs, just download it as a Microsoft Word document. It doesn't take very long. I prefer to have it in a Word document to use. For me, a little more native and easier. And let me show you what that looks pulled up. And you can see when you do the Control F function, it brings up the navigation screen we're used to on Word if you're working with that, and typing in startup. Still not working. It must be something on my computer. But anyway, what you would normally get is a whole list here of every reference to the document startup. That's late handed in. Okay. That is the document, the CTE Policy Guidebook that'll answer all of your questions. If you want to know how many credits you need for a program of study, if you want to know anything about NCES codes or SIP codes, the application process is all in here in our guidebook. So if you're working from a no program of study to a startup, or you're moving up to a full program of study, this is where you're going to find your resources. Same thing for the high quality program of study. If you search for a high quality program of study, you'll see the special matrix and the special definitions and procedures that go along with a high quality program of study. So we're going to put you into one of these three when you apply. Partnerships. Since the very beginning of CTE Revitalization, we've really stressed, and participants have realized the importance of getting good partners in this right from the beginning. So we want to make sure that you're set up well. If you're starting a brand new program, that you look everywhere you can, under every rock, under every leaf, to try and find out who can help you in this process, because you can't do it alone. And you might be able to do it alone at the beginning, but to build sustainability into programs of study for Perkins, you're going to find out it's much easier to have partnerships, people that are going to help you negotiate and cross over hurdles. Let's look at what some of those partnerships may be. The first one, if you haven't worked with them before, is the Oregon Workforce Partnership. The link here will open up a window for you that talks about the local workforce development boards, but what I think is even more important on this webpage is down at the bottom, by county, you can tell who is on your work board, when they meet, what their policies are, what their priorities are. These are funded from the state. We work intimately with these workforce and talent development boards. So this is, again, a valuable research for you. Find out where you are. Let's see, for Lynn County. And it takes us right to their page. These are the people in the community who have been tapped to be on these committees. And what you're going to find is people from all industries on this. These are appointments from the state for these people, and they take their job seriously. So work with these people, introduce themselves if you have seen them. A good way to get in with some of the workforce teams is through your local hub. So if you haven't yet contacted your local STEM hub, they're another great partner to get on early. What you're going to find is that you're looking for partners. Well, guess what? Everybody who's applying for this grant is looking for partners. STEM people are looking for partners. Community colleges are looking for partners. People with other programs of study throughout the state, those 1,000, are looking for partners. So the good news is you're not in this alone. The bad news is that you're really looking for partners, and it's competitive. It truly is. And one of the things you're going to find out is if you start to work like Alignment Workforce or your own workforce organization, or you work with your own local STEM hub, they already have relationships with these people. They have relationships most of the time with industry leaders. So I encourage you to get a hold of your local STEM hub. I'll put that link up at the end. I didn't do that, I apologize. But there's 12 or 13 in Oregon, and I encourage you to get a hold of them. These are some more resources. Workforce and Talent Development Board, we've already talked about. I'll only click on a couple of these. This is the Manufacturing Extensive. Specifically for manufacturing, obviously. I won't take you to all these sites. One of these organizations, and you start to go to some of the meetings, you'll find out that they're all over this.
Art, if you can hear us, I think we lost you. You're back, Art.
When did you lose me? I'm sorry, I'm talking away.
Art, the
I'm
last
sorry.
comment you made was you didn't need to open all of the links to all the workforce organizations, and you were ready to take that next step.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This has never happened before. Zoom just rebooted itself off.
Oh, I
We
know.
lost you again, Art. And sometimes when you turn your camera off, it helps.
Let's do that. How about now?
Go ahead and say something. I think
We can hear you.
Is that any better?
Yep.
Linda? Linda, is that any better? Okay, let's go with that. I apologize. Let me just look at my microphone, make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah. Okay. I'm almost done talking. That's the good news for all of us. I do want to pull up the Oregon CTE Student Leadership Foundation. This is something that when you're developing and you're designing your program of study, it really pays to start and look at this first. This is the site for the Oregon CTE Association, Student Leadership Association, HOSA, their skills, TSA, all of these are there. A component of the program of study is leadership.
Hey, Art, you need to reshare your screen.
Oh,
You lost your screen too.
thank you. Thank you. That was rebooted. This is the CTSO, or Student Technical Service Organizations, or their leadership organizations, HOSA, Skills USA, Future Farmers of America, and so on. I would encourage you to look at these organizations when you're developing your program of study, because it's much easier to build these in at the beginning than it is as you're going throughout. Let's say, and I know it's much easier to add a HOSA chapter at the beginning of a program of study than to try and work it in later. In the past, these CTSOs took up a lot of teachers' time, and it was not reimbursed. You should know that the law was passed this year so that Measure 98 funds can now be used for CTSOs, for paying student dues, for travel, and for preparing a stipend for the teacher that's doing it. So there are some more options to this. You have to have leadership in your program of study. If you don't use a CTSO, then you have to put in some other objectives for leadership. Let me go back to this. Oregon Hospital Auxiliary and Outreach Coordinators. If you're doing healthcare, people forget about all the different departments inside a hospital. All hospitals now have an outreach coordinator that carry on, their duties carry on education and getting students in to kind of shadow employees. But don't forget things like the hospital auxiliary. A lot of times they're the ones that run the gift shop, and they give out scholarships for students, or they're willing to step in and help. So if you're looking for partners that may be able to supply some special needs, take a look there. There's also the Oregon CTE STEM Employer Coalition. That's been around for a while. If you are not aware of this, go ahead and take a look at this, and you might want to see who's on this list. And also, they're very active in the legislature. Oregon Learns. And lastly, I want to put up the brand new STEM plan for 1921 to 25. Just to have in your toolkit. Again, this isn't something you're probably going to be using for a lot of your grant, but as you look through here, you can see what the STEM hubs are going to be doing till 1925, and it gives you a list of all the STEM hubs and who the important players are. So this is a gold mine too. All right. All that coffee has kicked in. And communication, we'll end with this. Again, this is just to put in your toolbox. Part of this grant is to make sure that people in your community and in your county and in your area know what's going on, that we're helping all parts of the state. So we're going to work with you, the grant recipients who are successful, to establish a media campaign. I'm not talking about a lot of work. I'm talking about something that you set up ahead of time and it'll probably just run itself. But the first thing I would suggest that you do when you get your grant is to use that last column, find your legislator in Oregon. Click on that, put in your address. If you haven't done this before, it takes you to your senator in the area they represent. Here's all the contact information, the House, and also your congressperson. So if you really want to get this thing out there quickly, contacting those three people and thanking them for giving you this grant and working with you, you're going to find out that politicians love any exposure they can get in the press, or if they can come out, if you're doing a groundbreaking, if you're doing an open house or whatever, please include these people in. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck from your legislator by doing that ahead of time. We're working on that. Chamber of Commerce, if you have not been working with your Chamber of Commerce in the past, there are quite a few school districts who have gotten a lot of traction by working with their Chamber of Commerce. These are the people who go out to the businesses and charge them money to join their organization. And if you're in there, you have access to all these people. As time develops more and more in the future, you look at Kiwanis, Rotary Lions, nonprofits and charities that are in the area. I just did Baker City looking for nonprofits that could help. I came up with really quite a few. This isn't for something right away. We're kind of busy this fall, but over the next year and a half, these are where you're going to be starting to develop some of your partners. I think WikiLeaks is awful except for lists. Newspapers, radio, and magazines in Oregon. If you click on those, it's this nice handy link that'll take you to all of the newspapers in your area. And if you click on it, it'll take you right to who you need to contact to have a nice story about your revitalization grant. We keep Twitter and Facebook updated with things that are going on from our end. So please feel free to go to those sites. And if you're a member, like us. Let's see. And that's it, except for questions now, right at the half-hour mark. Again, remember that applications are due Wednesday, November 10th. I'm going to turn off this and open it up for any questions.
Art, we have one question in the chat from Brian. If you wanted to start with that one, it's can an organization be the partner on more than one CTE Revit grant submission?
Wow, that's a good question. Can a partner be a partner with more than just one grant? Yes, right, Dan? Yeah. Yeah. You're muted there, Big Dan.
What I just said is, am I still muted? And obviously I was. That popped in the train of thought about the time you were talking about the community organizations and the economic development organizations and so forth. So I'll ask Brian to chime in and help to focus this if necessary. But if it's a matter of talking with local workforce investment boards or talking with economic development organizations, community colleges are huge partners. They are, of course, required for CTE programs of study. And beyond that, they are extremely powerful because that's the program to which a new program of study will align. And there is a very good likelihood that you'll have multiple schools working on grants and other activities who will be working with the same community colleges. But the same thing can be said about local nonprofits, about a variety of the organizations that we've discussed here. So I don't know if Brian, if that hits it, or if you had something else in mind.
Yeah, so I think how you've answered is yes, that a partner that may appear on more than one grant submission. Is that correct? All right. Thank you very much. I'm just thinking about rural districts and limited number of partners in those areas. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. If you're starting up a program and study, what type of commitment should a partner write about in the partner letter of commitment? For example, could a partner write that they'll be on an advisory committee or they will attend a career day? Yes, if they want to be that specific, fine. Which I would encourage maybe a more of a general partnership, that I'm going to partner with these people and we're going to get them through. Our goals are the same. We're going to work with them over the next 18 months to get to this point. But more importantly, after those 18 months, we're going to stay partners and help them out as much as we can. I would leave it more general so you don't limit yourself. If you have a partner who's a little skittish and only wants to be on the advisory committee, then by all means, grab them and then use them for a bunch of stuff. But yeah, tell them they're only on the advisory committee.
I just had one follow-up to that. Is there a certain length for the partner letter, or could it just be like a statement, like a paragraph? I'm trying to think of partner's time, and it's a tight
Yes,
window.
absolutely. Dan, you want to?
Well, ideally, what really we like to see and what carries weight is if it comes in on letterhead or if it comes in on the email domain associated with that organization, it should be more than just a quote. It should be more than a quickie paragraph. The concern would be if there's not the time to show the support of the venture, there won't be the time when it comes down to the point where the program really needs to be supported. And rather than being, turning into a list of names, it needs to be a group of individuals who are going to be there to help the program along. Because oftentimes when you're starting a program, universally when you're starting a program, business, labor, industry, your community context, your economic development context, help to abstract what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and they really help you in doing it. So you want partners who are going to be riding along with you as much as humanly possible.
Thank you for that kind of follow-up. Since we're a startup and we are going to seek funds to form these partnerships, we don't have them yet. So that's kind of one of our problem areas, is that's what we would be seeking the funds for, is advisory groups and partnerships. So that's kind of where we're kind of stuck, is that's what we need to do since it's a startup.
Laura, that's an excellent point. And I guess what I would say is the power of driving that is really the power of your network, and your network costs you nothing but investment in time in terms of telephone calls, emails, things of that nature, and reaching out to people and finding those people who are really over the moon about what you're doing and are willing to help. And sometimes those initial partners who are really excited about what you're doing will get you other partners rather than having to invest dollars in getting the partners. What we used to refer to the power of your Rolodex back when we had Rolodexes, and those are like ancient now, but it's the same concept. Can you bring people together who understand the value that you're bringing to the table and support what you're doing and are willing to say, I'm interested in investing time and energy and helping to move you forward? So I hope that helps a little bit. There are different ways of doing it, but that has traditionally been a pretty powerful way for people to build their networks.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? It looked like there was another one in there.
Here's one from Hilda in the chat. Are there any examples of CTE programs in very small districts in Oregon? Wondering about sharing of coursework online for students.
There are quite a few examples with small districts. Let me go ahead and come up with a link for that from our website, the archives and stuff. And Dan, if you maybe want to add a little bit about smaller districts and things that they need to work on or challenges.
Certainly. Thanks, Art. Hilda and hello to you. It's been a while. in our last go around with Revite, the focus, the interest, the legislative intent, the interest of electeds and others was to help connect those institutions, those schools that were small and very small, oftentimes rural and isolated rural, with the opportunity to participate in revitalization. These were schools that were at least perceived not to be as involved in revitalization, and there was really a strong interest in getting them linked up. So there were a number of schools, and Art's getting the list of abstracts from the last go round of Revite, who were definitely in the small to very small categories, who tapped into funds and were able to do some pretty cool things. Now, granted, everything in the last go around with Revite was interesting because of COVID and fires and everything going sort of sideways. Be that as it may, there was a lot of energy that people put into trying to improve their situation and extend the power of their CTE programs in their particular areas. I note from your comment here, sharing coursework online for students. It's an interesting idea, one that probably merits some conversation. And when we have conversations like that here, of course, we're not doing basically a pre-screen or a pre-validation of ideas. We're talking about things and having a conversation. But certainly there is interest broadly about how do you extend the learning experience for individuals who may be geographically isolated or in any way placed in a position where resources are a concern. And we oftentimes talk about the kid who lives in Paisley who wants to learn about marine architecture and marine welding, and there haven't been too many ocean-going barges built in Eastern Oregon in a few years. So it's oftentimes the case that knowledge exists somewhere else. Well, how to do that? A lot of people are thinking about that right now, and that might be an example of the type of thing that you're driving at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I just put in the chat a link that goes to our website. And if you click on that under the grant recipients at the top, it says project abstracts on that link. And those abstracts are what we put out on a press release. So as part of your program of study application, you're going to be preparing an abstract for that same purpose should you become selected. And this is what they look like. So you can go through here and pick out some smaller high schools and some school districts there and see. Bend High School bought a food truck. Yeah, quite a few different ideas there. Any other questions? Thank you, Hulda. Any questions about what needs to be done next in your own particular situation, or just starting to come together? Checked out the archive site. Appreciate the information. Oh, good. Thank you.
Art, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So I'm working in a school district with 3 different high schools, and we have programs of study that exist in both high schools. And so we're looking at potential opportunities for us to kind of align those not only with each other, but with industry as kind of a focal point of our grant. And so I've got multiple people that are interested, and I guess 2 questions. One is, I recognize that the resources need to be shared around, but does it make us less competitive to submit multiple requests and hoping you recognize the best one, or should we try to wrap up all of those requests into a single kind of unified idea, even though there's multiple programs of studies represented? And if that's the case, does that count as a consortium or not when we're talking about 3 different high schools?
Great questions that Dan is going to be happy to answer. I bump those right up when they happen. So we have consistency. Thanks.
Art and I actually rehearsed this ahead of the curve. If you take a look at the information contained in the RFA, consortia are across or are between districts. Okay. So it's an inter-district relationship, intra-district relationships, it's certainly feasible to go ahead and partner with another high school in the same district. The max is 125. Answering your other question about, is it better to hit multiple applications or is it better to come up with kind of a super application? I would really look at what the end game is in your particular area. What problem are you trying to solve in terms of linking the secondary experience to life after the secondary experience, whether that's apprenticeship, community college, direct to work 4-year, and working with your partners in the area, with your business, labor, and industry partners. How are you developing those synergies and those energies necessary to address those needs? That's probably the best way to look at it, because ultimately, when the grant is assessed or evaluated, the evaluators, who are not us, will be looking at what's your plan, how does it drive opportunity for learners, and how efficaciously will that all happen. So that's about as, gnat's eyebrows I can get on that. So
Okay.
I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Anyone else?
I got a quick question for you. So kind of like Chris's question with that, we've had an old, well, not old, about a 5-year program of study in our business, and we lost the teacher, and she came back this last year. And so this grant proposal that I'm in the process of writing is wrapped around that, in addition with our egg program of study, as kind of creating a storefront to actually have kids, making merchandise to actually sell, whether it be nursery art, metal art, all kinds of things like that. And then kind of that focus being there, but also we just got accepted in our health services program of study September 2nd. So I wanted to kind of create 2 learning places. Now the storefront, we're going to leverage some bond money for that to buy build the construction, and then kind of, house it with money from this grant if I'm successful, we are successful. And then the other health services component, we have a classroom, but we have another learning space I'd like to create and fill that as kind of our health services lab. Now, I was thinking wrapping these 2 things together because they're different, but they're still creating 2 learning spaces for kids. And I mean, am I off base, or is that a good direction to go? Hopefully I was clear.
Mr. Dan, go ahead.
Mike, I'd say largely speaking, it depends on how you tell your story and how the grant evaluators can see that through line between the experience that the students have in the high school program and where that takes them, so that it can be pretty clearly interpreted or inferred how the student can move through, be successful. You, of course, are going to be looking at all of your students, from the most advantaged to the least advantaged, students who are traditionally underrepresented in those areas. So, of course, we're talking non-trad, but we're talking about in other ways that students may be historically underrepresented in a particular area, and that the story kind of tells itself. How I start out as a student early on in the program, and I find my way through. I find my way on to an in-demand, high-wage, high school position that is satisfying and allows me to be a successful, potent member of the economy. So it's, rather than being things, and we've had some questions about, it's almost like the thing-related grant, and it's less the things, and it's more how the things build a synergy to get a group of students over to that place where they are successful and are able to develop a place in the work world for themselves based on what we in the ed business can do to assist them.
Okay, thank you.
What school are you from, Mike?
Dayton?
Oh, okay, thanks. Just got that signed and over yet.
I guess since I'm kind of got the spot here, one more question. So I know that now in the document itself, it says if you received a grant in the past, you've got to write about, now we received one 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I first came here. Do I still need to do an assurance for that, or do I need to touch that at all?
Well, technically speaking, yeah, I'm unmuted. I always doubt myself on this whole mute thing. Technically speaking, you are a prior recipient. So you want to differentiate what you're planning on doing from what you've done in the past. And the nitpicky details are all in the RFA, but essentially it needs to be a new thrust, or it needs to be a new partnership that's developing value. But yeah, if you've joined us since 2011, then it's helpful if we know how things are different.
Yes, this is. Said thank you.
Good question. Got time for a couple more. This is the time you got us all together.
I have a question again. Thank you. So we are actually creating a new high school, and we were thinking this could be used to develop more than one program of study. And I wanted to know, our timeline we aren't opening until fall of 2023, but the planning would happen in the time period you're saying. I just wanted to see if that timeline's okay. We won't open for student business at that time, but we'll be preparing for those students. And sorry about my barking dog.
Dogs are always fine around here, and go ahead.
Want to take it, Art? Or either one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And thank you for email. I did see yours in email here. I think it came in yesterday, or it got elevated to me yesterday. So I appreciate, Laura, your email. I guess that the question would be, let's say that heaven forbid, the building doesn't get finished. Is that program of study still viable? That's the first question I would ask myself if I were sitting in your chair.
So would it be like a backup plan at an additional high school or something? Would you want us to identify what a backup plan might be if that is the case?
You will want to identify and have a good idea what your plan B, plan C is for your pivot, if you have to pivot. There are circumstances and related to hard goods, related to assets. We had one high school that ordered a vehicle in April or May, and they still haven't received it. And they still haven't received a good solid idea about when they're ever going to see that particular vehicle. And we all know why. It's a supply chain problem. But that makes things very difficult on the individual schools, because those are not reimbursable until the deliverables are met. If you're a good sized district, that's one thing. If you're a small district, it's a much different situation. So a pivot would need to be fairly tightly attached to the original thrust of the CTE Revit grant application, such that it is a slight change of direction, rather than, oh, we can't put it in this program, so if it's not going to go into metals, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start a culinary program. That's such a radical turning of the corner that it doesn't really, and it requires two separate groups of partners, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So it is to your advantage to figure out what that pivot could be, just in case that happens to happen. But you are correct in that a lot of the things that need to be done to build a program are situated within the umbrella of the grant and could be done. But you want to keep it fairly neat and tidy and tight, and you want to have that fairly laser focus as you're going forward.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Other questions? And of course, if we don't get it to it today, there is that email address that you can always leverage to get to us. It's in the RFA, it's on the page at the ODE site related to the grant, and we are more than happy to answer your questions. We're also developing an FAQ or a FAQ that reflects the information that we're gleaning as people ask questions. And we're getting wonderful questions, very thoughtful questions. And we're using that to build, better knowledge for everyone. So don't be shy, and we can do email responses, and we have been doing quite a few Zoom communications with folks to answer their questions, which those turn out really well. Those are very helpful for us. And thank you very much, Linda, for dropping that email address in there.
Sure, just want to make sure I got all the letters in there correctly. I think they're good.
And there are a mess of them.